Testing 1, 2, 3. Good. We are live here at the Marshalltown City Hall Council Chambers for a regularly scheduled meeting. The date is January 9, 2023, and the time is 5:30 p.m. And we have the agenda already published for people, and then I need to read this call to order and proviso. It goes like this. Notice of the public, the mayor and council welcome comments from the public during discussion of the items that are on the agenda. You have to step to the mic, state your name and address for the record, and limit your time to 3 minutes or less so others can be given a similar opportunity. Speak clearly and direct your comments to the mayor and council and not to a councilor specifically, and it's at the discretion of the mayor and council to respond to specific questions or comments or to have staff respond during the meeting. Would those who are able join us in the pledge? Very good. Roll call, please.
Hoop. Here. Isom.
Here.
Kell.
Here.
Lottiehoff.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Very good. Full house. And it's now time for any comments to be made by the mayor, council, or administrator, public. Oh, we're doing, I forgot. Yeah, this is 2023. Wow. Okay. Well, you guys have the pleasure of listening to another proviso by the mayor. And this one goes similarly. Members of the public may make comments on any item which was not on the agenda at this time. Approach the mic, state your name and address. Limit your comments to 3 minutes unless a longer comment is authorized by me. The speaker shall direct comments to the mayor and to the council as a whole, and the mayor and councilors shall not engage in discussion or debate on items raised by members of the public, and no action may be taken on items raised in public comments in order to comply with open meetings laws. And if I hadn't skipped the last meeting, thank you, Mr. Lottiehoff, for covering for me. We were in California and Wyoming with family and a couple little grandchildren. That's the proviso, so now is the time for public comment at the beginning of the meeting instead of the end. Mic is open. I don't see anybody jumping up or waving a hand or rushing to the microphone, so let's go on now to the mayor, city council, or administrator comments. Does the administrator have any comments?
No, Your Honor.
Any members of the council have any comments? And the mayor doesn't either. Good. On to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to move to approve it?
I'd move to approve, Your Honor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Thompson.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Hoop.
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Kell.
Yes.
Lottiehoff.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Would you tell us what's on there?
Approve the minutes for the December 27th, 2022 meeting in the bill list in amount of $1,907,866.19. Approve liquor license renewals for 7 Rails Liquor Store at 120 East Main Street, Ocean City at 5 West Main Street, and Casey's number 1303 at 111 North 3rd Avenue. Approve November 2022 financial statements. Receipt of building permit report for December 2022 and the 2022 annual report. Resolution 2023-001 authorizing a settlement agreement. Resolution 2023-002 approving the fiscal year 2022 annual comprehensive financial report for the city of Marshalltown. Resolution 2023-003 authorizing the purchase of 2 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD trucks for the Parks and Recreation Department from Carl Chevrolet for the price of $35,524.60 each, and declaring certain property surplus property and authorizing disposal thereof. Resolution 2023-004 declaring certain property surplus property and authorizing disposal thereof from the Transit Division of the Public Works Department. Resolution 2023-005 approving engineer's statement of completion and accepting Garling Construction Airport Hangar Reskin Project. Resolution 2023-006 approving contract change order number 3 for the Sidewalk Gaps Year 2 project number SDW 20001, an increase in the amount of $3,827.
Very good, thank you. That 2.5 minutes just saved us about 25 minutes of having to go through those. Let's go on to item G, motions, the first one of which is what?
Motion to approve a new special Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service for Tannin at 125 East Main Street.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Very good. Any discussion?
Yes, Your Honor, there is new ownership of Tannin, so they have applied for a new liquor license.
Thank you. Any comments or questions up here at the council?
I just have a question, Your Honor.
Sure.
What is the outdoor area? Is it still the few tables on the side, public sidewalk, or is it something out back?
Yes, it's the front sidewalk area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments up here? Any questions or comments from the public? I'd like to say I was able to go to with the open house with the new owners, and it was well attended and a fun event. And I see the Curleys are in the audience here. They were the ones that founded it, and we're just really tickled to have that continue on as a meeting place in Marshalltown. So let's call the roll.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Bodyhoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
No.
Very good. That carried the second and last of the motions.
Motion to approve a new special Class C retail alcohol license with special Class A beer permit and outdoor service for the Marshalltown Arts and Civic Center at 709 South Center Street.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Very good. Discussion?
Yes, Your Honor, this is a new application for the MAC. They are going to have a license so they can hold special events, and the outdoor service area is for the parking lot for events.
Thank you. Questions or comments up here? Out there? Roll call.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
No.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. I just realized I forgot to bang the gavel. Let's start all over. Just kidding. All right, on to H, resolutions, only one of which is what?
Resolution 2023-007, authorizing and approving a loan and disbursement agreement and providing for the issuance and securing the payment of $13,125,000 for a sewer revenue bond, Series 2023.
Floor is open for motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
And second, very good. Discussion?
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. Last June, we had the public hearing on this project for the Headworks. Sewer Enterprise Fund will be paying for the principal and interest from the borrowing. And so it's the CIP project and Headworks project, and Heather can answer any question on those specific projects.
Thanks, Diana. Any questions or comments up here by the council? This might be an early, quick meeting tonight. Any questions or comments by the public? I shouldn't say that. Yeah, he hasn't missed a free throw in 4 times, yeah. Roll call.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Very good. On to ordinances. Oh, before that though, boy, if you're a Cyclone fan, it was a good week last week, actually for the Hawkeyes too. Talking about not missing free throws. All right, next one.
Ordinance 15056 to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Marshalltown, Iowa, Chapter 53, Stormwater, to establish a Stormwater Advisory Committee, second reading.
Move for approval, Your Honor.
Thank you. For a second.
Second.
Very good discussion. Heather.
Good evening, Heather Thomas, Public Works. Given this is the second reading and we went over the establishment at the first reading last meeting, I'll just open it up to questions to establish this 5-member Stormwater Advisory Committee.
Questions by council? Questions or comment by the public? Roll call.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. And we are suggesting another 2.1 motion to waive second and third readings.
Number 2 first.
Oh, number two
Ordinance,
first.
Ordinance 15057 to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Marshalltown, Iowa, 70.073, Notice of Automated Traffic Citation, first reading.
Is there a motion to approve that ordinance?
So move.
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
Discussion on this item.
Chris Jones, Captain of Operations for the Police Department. Since the SCATSO, during the last couple of weeks, we've been working on our operational plan on how to implement our automated traffic enforcement. And part of one of the recommendations, it's contrary to the ordinance that was passed during the last city council meeting, was that we extend the citation time from 10 days, which is listed in the ordinance, to 30 days to provide for some back office and possibly some unexpected delays in issuing those citations. They said that they could possibly get that done in the 10-day time frame, but that doesn't it doesn't make due for any electronic delays or possibly delays on our end in reviewing those tickets. And 30 days would give us a little bit more of a leeway in fitting in with the ordinance.
Thank you. Council comments or questions?
Your Honor, I have a question for Chris, if I may.
You may.
This may not be the time and place, Chris, but the people that are for this automated traffic control, I've gotten some calls. Are you still looking at 2 fixed and 1 movable? Because they're actually, the calls I've gotten, they're recommending 3 movable instead of 2 fixed and 1 movable.
Well, the program is expandable. What the contract that we have with Census SCATSO right now is 2 fixed sites, which would be areas that would be difficult for us to provide enforcement in vehicles, and then 1 movable site, which I'd expressed interest in using in conjunction with our regular speed trailer as a program to provide community awareness and then enforcement after that.
Yeah, I was just curious if that had been committed yet, so thank you.
Yep.
Other council comments or questions? Any public on this one? Roll call.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie Hoff.
Yes.
That carried, and then now is the 2.1 suggestion of waiving the second and third readings. Is there a motion to do that?
I move to waive the second and third readings.
Thank you. I guess I should have read that that's under Iowa Code 70.073, notice of automated traffic citation, amending the Code of Ordinances, and assuming that is true with the motion and the second, is there?
I'll second.
Oh, thank you. It didn't catch the lack of a second, and that's not debatable as I understand it, so roll call.
Lottie Hoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Good, that carried as well. On to discussion items, the first of which is a few budget items. 1.1, Marshalltown Municipal Band request for instrumental property tax levy. Discussion on that one.
Hi, Diana Steiner, Finance Director. Full disclosure, I am a member of the Marshalltown Community Band. Jody and Karen are here. They're officers of the band, and they want to talk to you about their request for the tax levy.
You know, all of us want to know what instrument you play there, though.
French horn.
Okay, thank you.
Alto saxophone.
Okay. And Jody, would you identify your name and address too?
My name is Jody Britnell, and I'm here with Karen Engesser, and we are here representing the Marshalltown Municipal Band. And I just want to say I celebrated my 50th year with the municipal band this summer. So we are requesting a $9,000 tax levy. It's used to pay for the band director, who is Brett Umphlin, musicians, music, and equipment. We had a total of 19 rehearsals and concerts for the 2022 from May through July. We rehearsed on Monday nights and performed on Thursday evenings at the 13th Street Shelter. And it was nice to see people attending with takeout from the Flying Elbow and ice cream from Lily Mays. Many children enjoyed the music while playing on the playground equipment at 13th Street. Our members range in age from 16 to 82. It's a great intergenerational group, and we would appreciate your continued support. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Your Honor, if I may?
You may.
Jody, the ages are 16 to 82,
Yes,
and you've been with the band for 50 years?
yes,
Are you that 82-year-old?
I am not.
Ah, you're out of order again, Gary.
I did start when I was 14, so do the
Wow.
math.
Let's see how fast you are in the math. Where's that slide rule when you need it? Very good. Discussion or comments up here by the council? Any discussion by the public?
I'd like to add, I am a 78-year-old.
Wow, congratulations and happy birthday, and there you go. Those in the public that are, more and more people admit that they listen to these or watch these meetings remotely, and so those that couldn't hear it is, we had a confirmation that our 82-year-old is in the audience as well.
So-
And what instrument?
Is
Is not in
not.
the, is not in the audience, so I missed it.
He
See,
plays, he plays trumpet.
Okay,
And his
trumpet,
birthday's
alright.
in the summer, and we always have to play happy birthday, because his birthday's in the summer.
There you go.
So-
I'm facing my 70th birthday on February 26th, and my hearing is going. I'm told I need to get hearing aids, but I can't afford them. Very good.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Jessica, are you looking for some sort of motion from us or direction of what to do?
I think we'll plan to put this as part of our property tax levy unless there's any objections at this point.
No, I have none. I think it's very reasonable.
Yeah, thank you for suggesting that, because I didn't know if we were going to do staff direction on each one of these items or wait till the end. Let's do it that way, too. If anybody has an objection, then we'll know. I don't see anybody raising a hand or thumbs down or anything on it. I didn't ask for any other public comment, but I could. And nobody else is jumping up to talk, so thank you. I think staff has its direction. Let's go to item.
We
number-
do appreciate your support, thank you.
Thank you. All right, number 1.2 is first draft of the year 23-27 capital improvement plan.
Yes, I'm gonna just go through sort of the high level by fund, and please note that we will have some changes here. I did talk about some of this in my memo to you. If you do have questions, please interrupt me along the way as we go. So our first fund that we have is Fund 030, and this is basically the fund where the CIP, the Capital Improvement Tax Levy, which is 67.5 cents as part of our tax levy, comes into here and supports a lot of the capital costs for a lot of our general fund departments. And so, let me see if I can. This would include the airport, it includes city clerk, housing, anytime we're replacing a copier, pickup truck for building maintenance, fire equipment, information systems, information technology, any of the servers or replacements of staff computers. Our library, this is where part of their mobile outreach unit's still coming from, as well as their annual automation software. This is where a significant amount of Parks and Rec projects come from as well. And then police, getting into some of the equipment needs for the police department. One thing I do want to mention, there is a negative balance that is shown here. That is taken care of with the property tax valuation information that we did get pretty late in the day on Friday. So the next draft that will come before you will show a positive balance there, and this is taken care of. Any questions on 030? Okay, going just to 031. This one is one that's going to take a little bit more discussion and prioritization from staff to come back to you. Essentially, this fund is our building maintenance fund that really only has funding to get us through next fiscal year with projects that we have planned, but we do have more for that. Heather and David Deemer have done a great job of coming up with some immediate projects out at the airport, along with some for the Carnegie building and City Hall. And then there's a few different ones for the fire department as well as the library. And so if we were looking at a franchise fee, at the start of this fiscal year, there would be a portion under the proposal that we have, a portion of that funding would come here. I do think this is also a fund that will end up growing in terms of projects when we come back at some point in this calendar year, requesting some additional funding to pay for a facilities planning study. And that might not be the correct title for it, but essentially a review of our facilities to come up with those long-term maintenance projects. .032 is the CIP Large Vehicle Fund. This is holding 15% of the property tax levy that comes into .030. You can see the next large vehicle replacement we have is in fiscal year 26 and is for the fire department. This is also a fund that we can look at tapping into should we need to move some police car expenses or other vehicle expenses that might end up being a little bit more expensive as we're projected to have a healthy balance in this fund, even with that purchase of the fire truck. I'll probably go through the next ones a little bit quicker here. Road use tax. This accounts for a number of operational items, including some capital purchases, some including infrastructure, but also including just kind of the day-to-day things that are needed in terms of equipment and vehicles for the operations of engineering and streets. The next fund is Fund 121, Local Option Sales Tax. You'll note that this one does have a negative balance showing that ties directly to the city center parking lot. And I wanted to kind of keep it this way and plan it so that you can know that the city center parking lot was council designated funds, whereas the other two projects, Edgewood and the South 7th Avenue Extension, were using the remaining lost capital funds. So trying to distinguish between those that we have going on there. We also did make that quick change at the last meeting to move the Creekside Estates out of local option sales tax, which moves some street improvement projects in. So that's why you see some additional projects down there that we haven't really talked about in depth. Moving on, miscellaneous capital grants. This accounts for the Elks Park grant as well as a DOT grant for traffic controllers. And Fund 133 is where we are accounting for the federal portion coming in for the Coliseum generator. And the Park and Rec Gift Fund is also accounting for a part of the Coliseum generator as well as Fund 031. So there's three things supporting that one project. New to this year is the Tornado Disaster Fund. So as we basically looked at where we were, we have just about received all of our donated resources, of which we didn't have a corresponding expense. And then for our equipment time, they just give us basically you tell them how many hours you used a piece of equipment, and there is a formula for figuring out what you get reimbursed. So we were buying gas and other things along the way, and that went to that fund. But then the total cost that we were reimbursed for equipment, there was not necessarily a corresponding expense. So we are recommending that we utilize these dollars to support equipment replacement of equipment that was used in that tornado response. And so we've got a few things here for fiscal year 24, as well as one in fiscal year 25 to zero this one out. And you will see in the future, we'll be doing the same thing with Fund 149, which is our derecho response fund, and looking at that. The next few funds, police grants, and the other police grants are where just some grants come in, and we kind of just set a corresponding in and out budget so that there is authority to spend those dollars. And then that takes us to the library gift fund, where is Tanya here?
No, I'm sorry. I thought you didn't need her here.
Okay, nope, not a problem. We'll address that here later. We do have a letter, a formal kind of letter from Tanya Gaffney, board president, with their formal request that explains a little bit more about this. But the library is looking to utilize donations to do an interior renovation, as well as pay for a garage for the mobile outreach vehicle. Seized assets is another police fund where it's basically an in and an out. Fund 311 is where we account for the Edgewood Extension Project, which is the revenue that you see there with the grants and our waterworks contribution and remaining expenses. And then the next project that we would be looking at, that I didn't add the revenue for, would be the Highland Acres Road reconstruction, which we'll still have future conversation on that one, but this will be correcting next time to show the state STP surface transportation funds that would be involved in that. Fund 312 is our airport fund, which is accounting for the remaining life on the existing project down at the bottom, as well as $40,000 for a new water line. That was one of the things that was brought up previously. And then it's looking out at what are those other projects that are out there to do. We have some snow removal equipment that will be paid for with some federal funds, as well as then the next pavement projects that have a partial city contribution. This is just showing the federal contribution. And Fund 353 is our basically placeholder fund for those projects that we would be borrowing for at some point in the future. And so all of this is tentative right now. We don't have our debt capacity workbook yet to talk about in depth. That'd normally be something we'd do tonight and talk a little bit more specifically about these projects, but we're not quite there. I think the big thing to take away from Fund 353 is that in FY27, we have $19.45 million worth of projects, and it doesn't seem like that would probably fit into what we would be looking at in terms of being able to borrow in 1 year. So we'll talk more in depth about this at the January 23rd meeting, and I will get the debt capacity workbook out to you prior to that meeting so you can kind of see where things sit based on the valuation information. 355 is our dangerous and dilapidated building program. I do have a bonding amount up in 353 in FY26 to fund the program again for some additional years, but we are looking at some heavy spending in this current fiscal year. 360 is our 2019 bond funds. You recently took some actions to move some projects around so that we could spend these funds as they are our oldest and are earning interest at a higher rate than we are currently paying on the bond, which is a problem. There's calculations you have to do to repay the IRS anything you earn. So we basically have this all accounted for and spent out, and I'm told that $213 will go away when they finalize out some of those projects. Fund 362 just has one project left. That's the Railroad Quiet Zone. We'll talk more in depth about that one here as we go along, but this is just accounting for what would be the engineering and the Union Pacific related work as a part of that project. Fund 363 is the money that we borrowed in 2021, and it is sitting there earning some really nice interest currently. We do have a few projects that will be starting soon, which is the State Street project. We are getting closer there. East Main Street will be happening, and so we'll start to see this amount diminish in the current fiscal year and next fiscal year, but this is accounting for those projects. This also is accounting for the projects that were remaining in Fund 360, as well as the projects that were remaining in Fund 354, which was the police and fire building. Fund 364 is our current bond. And so we'll talk a little bit more about this on the next discussion item, but this basically shows the in and out and where things sit. There's a number of park and recreation related projects, as well as some infrastructure projects and street improvements that we have planned. Fund 389 is the American Rescue Plan. I thought it'd be good to show you that we did receive the full amount that we were allocated, and that we have, $600,000 going towards the Edgewood extension, and then there's $2.4 million that will be going towards State Street. It does show that there's a large balance, but I did want to include this note at the very end to make you aware that we do have this allocated out towards some other items, and so there's really almost $50,000 that remains unallocated, as we did not need the full amount for the fiscal year 2022 general fund replacement. So we'll be hopefully getting a better feel on the fiscal year '23 and have an idea what amount remains and can be used in what places as we continue our budget discussions. 395 is where we account for some reimbursements that we're receiving on some of these capital projects, and that includes the developer reimbursement on South 7th Avenue as well as Creekside Estates, which should both be paid in this fiscal year. This is the one where I feel like when we start to get into wastewater, things get quite complex, so I'm not going to go through all of these, but Fund 612 accounts for all of the capital projects related to the wastewater treatment plant and the operations of the wastewater treatment plant and lift stations. And so I will just say kudos to Bob Ranson and his crew for basically really having a very detailed capital improvement plan that they follow through with each year. And so there are a number of items here for the wastewater treatment plant that probably don't mean a lot to you and me, but they are things that Bob has done a great job of planning for. We get to the next ones, 615 and 616 do have some projects to talk about. The state revolving fund money is going into Fund 615. We talked about that, or we just took action on that loan here a little bit earlier. And so that includes the Headworks project and the CIPP project. And it also includes the projects that we will be using the sponsored project dollars on, which is $1.3 million for a City Hall parking lot in the pedestrian alley. And so there is a lot of money coming in here. I did have a good question earlier today from Councilmember Schneider about why the variability in the user fees. And the way wastewater works, it's kind of like one giant pot of money that all the revenue comes into, and then it gets transferred out to a number of different funds for operations, for capital projects. And so we had some cash that we were planning to use on the CIPP and the Headworks projects, and so this is getting that cash into this fund from the user fees. 616 is accounting for some other capital projects where we have some sanitary sewer needs. 690 is our transit fund, and we do have some bus purchases coming up, both on the new level in fiscal year 26, and then looking to acquire some Cyride buses and some light-duty chauffeur buses this fiscal year to assist with keeping the lifespan of our fleet going. Next fund is our stormwater fund, and this is one where we account for, again, some different equipment costs and things like that, but also different payments and things where we have some storm sewer that comes into play. We also have storm sewer lift stations, which Troy has done a good job of outlining the expenses that we are expecting to see for capital maintenance. And then finally, we have our compost fund. And so this is accounting for compost. We are planning to get a turner in this fiscal year, and then we'll be working on a screen for FY26. All of this is dependent on the fees and the amount of funding that is available, and so we will be having more conversations about that as we go through the next few fiscal years. So that's a big level highlight. I'm happy to answer any questions. We have our department head team here to answer any questions you might have too.
Floor is open for questions from council first.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
Jessica, this is the first draft. Coming back to 23rd, you'll have a more corrected copy. Is that correct? And did you want questions then, or do you want them now?
If you have questions now, I think we'd like that. Or if you have questions as you review this now, having kind of a verbal explanation between now and really the 19th is, I think, when we'll try and get that agenda out, the 19th or the 20th. Please reach out to myself or Diana so that we can try and get things answered, or include things that would be proposals coming forward as well. But we didn't want to spend a ton of time belaboring things tonight, just because there are some moving pieces related to the next item, and we didn't have our full debt capacity workbook figured out.
So the 23rd, we'll go through it again, and then the 30th, are we finalizing then, or the first meeting in February?
I would say the 30th. I mean, really, we just need to finalize it before we would publish. So I don't want to say that there's a hard dead date, but we do want to figure things out sooner rather than later. Just from the administrative side, we do things in this program, and then we have to basically translate this data and manually enter it into our financial software. So that does take some time. So we like to get things as finalized as possible as early on to make those entries.
And you think it'll be the 19th when we see that revised draft then?
Yes, something will go out in the council packet where I'll make note of the changes that I corrected. Like we know that there's going to be a change on the property tax revenue and like Fund 311. I clearly messed that one up, and so we'll have some changes. The more that can be pointed out or questions asked, the more helpful that is, I think, leading into the next meeting.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Sure. Other questions up here? Questions or comments by the public? You don't need staff direction on this one?
Nope, more versions will be coming the council's way as we get more information.
Okay.
Very good. Now we're at 1.3, proposal for reallocation of the 4-year 23 general obligation bond proceeds.
Yes, so I do want to bring this one sheet up that was in the previous plan here. So the amounts that we borrowed for quite a few of the park and recreation projects that you see listed there are ones that were based on what we needed to be able to secure 40% funding from the Iowa Economic Development Authority through the Destination Iowa grant. We did not get that grant funding, so it kind of put us back at the start of things to figure out where we are at and how to move forward so that all of these projects don't just sit there with partial funding, and we really need some direction on how to move forward. So the one project that I think we are comfortable from the staff side of saying we would like to move forward with is the water plaza. Right now, we're working on an estimate of 1.9 million, but that can change here as we have a final concept going through the steering committee next week. And then after that, that will be coming your way for kind of final review and comment. But your comments now have a lot of merit to what we would be discussing. And so at 1.9 million, we are looking at having $450,000 on hand in general obligation bond funds. My recommendation is to reallocate $560,000 that we initially put towards the River's Edge Trailhead. It's showing as $760,000 on the sheet in front of you, only because there's a $200,000 donation coming in from Trails Inc. So that would go away, and that amount would end up being $560,000. So I'm recommending that we reallocate that amount to the water plaza at this point. To be very open and transparent, that does not get us where we are trying to go, and that's a little over 1 million, and there's still a significant gap to fill. We do have some grant possibilities coming up here with the Prairie Meadows Foundation and the CAT grant, the Community Attraction and Tourism Grant through the state, that their next process is in July. And we do believe that we would have some ability to fund this project through some larger outside grants. This also means that there would still be a portion that we would need to raise locally as well and do a fundraising campaign. Going the fundraising route, that does put us at a point where we would be not constructing in 2023, we would be constructing in 2024. And so I'm happy to take a pause for a moment, get questions, feedback. Jeff is here. Councilmember Lottie Hoff is on the steering committee, and we can try and answer anything that we can at this point and get some direction.
I do have a question. What happens to the River's Edge Trailhead then?
We would be putting that project back in Fund 353 for a future year. So back as a capital project to be funded at some point in the future.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Jessica, when we had spoken offline, we've talked a little bit about some of the feedback we got on the grant cycle, some of which was disappointing because we didn't get the grants we were hoping for, but they kind of pointed us in a direction where we might have some opportunity. Would it I just want to get some feedback on, let's say we don't adjust anything with the trailhead and we just wait for a better opportunity for the water plaza. Do you have any reflections on a comment like that?
So the feedback that we had from the state in a phone call was that there were two projects that they felt really fit the CAT grant, and that was the Trail Bridge and the Water Plaza. And so that's where the Water Plaza is the one that really isn't dependent on anything else at this point. It's a kind of its standalone project. And so we felt that that was the better project to move forward with, also because we have soon to have preliminary design and a better cost estimate than we do on anything else that we have put more money in to basically get to a more finished point.
Any other council comments or questions?
Your Honor?
Yes.
So is there any inside baseball on, is this going to be really $1.9 million, the water plaza?
Well, it's going to be expensive. I think the piece that we really haven't talked about a lot publicly, and we will once we have a concept to come forward, is the requirement for a shower house, which in and of itself is a large chunk of the project. That's required by state pool code. I know it doesn't make sense to us either, but it's one of those things that it's a requirement for us to be able to move forward on the project. I do believe that we have the ability to probably phase some things. And so I would say if there's direction to be provided to the steering committee and to staff to take to the steering committee and the consultants on this, that it would be good to receive that now.
Other questions up here?
In response to that, it could end up being higher, but if the cost is higher, that means that we have to do that much more fundraising. So that doesn't come out of the bottom end budget.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, there is a lot of money behind the trailhead already, so that is a project that does have public attention. The Ann Kaiser Trust is actually the originating source of that money, and I'd imagine there could probably be some more there too. But as far as trail projects go, if the Connection Trail and Lynn Creek Trail Bridge get done, that's pretty good progress on the trail, so I suppose it could be delayed, but yeah, I'll just wait to hear more details on the water plaza, because I do think we need one somewhere.
Your Honor?
If we're going to, yes, go ahead.
Jessica, do you have, or Jessica or Jeff, what are the projections for the annual operating cost of the $2 million water plaza? Because we don't have a fund set up or a stream of money for that, so I've got to believe there's cost associated with maintaining this.
We don't have anything built into the budget or have anything at this point without knowing what fiscal year it would hit. If it's going to be constructed in 2024, it'd probably be a next fiscal year type of thing.
You guys don't have Bolton Mank hasn't given you ideas on other water plazas? There's no information out there that tells us the annual cost of this?
Well, we know that we're going to have to pay for the water. We've had conversations with Waterworks, and I think that was looking at like $5,000 a year about for water, depending on usage. So otherwise, it's adjacent to Mega 10 Park. It's adjacent to the pool. I'm not sure that it takes any additional time for area that wasn't already being mowed or, staff to pick up trash or other things. It's literally right there on the north side of Mega 10 Park. Essentially, the bathroom for Mega 10 would be replaced by the bathhouse to make things work.
And then do we have shower facilities at the aquatic center?
Yes. And we did look at, does it make sense to try and utilize those? And the distance is longer than you think in terms of what that looks like and having people walk one way or the other. And so that was an option that was out there. But replacing the bathroom at Mega 10 and then moving that bathroom to another park that needs a bathroom upgrade was deemed to be the best option for moving forward.
Well, I'll just say for the record that I'm totally against this. I think we'd be better off in the long run just to make the aquatic center free and move on with smaller water parks, water splash pads in other locations around town. We could probably do 2 or 3 for this kind of money that would be really small and more utilized in the neighborhood. So I can't support this at all.
Other council comments?
Your Honor,
Yes.
so I remember we got a Prairie Meadow grant not too long ago, it's probably been a number of years. What does that funding possibly look like? And additionally, what does a CAT grant possibly look like? I mean, I guess I'm trying to put together the pieces of 1.9 million, what's currently 500 borrowed, and a pretty significant gap. Like, what are those pieces? I know that's hypothetical, but
I think we would be applying for 200,000 from Prairie Meadows and 200,000 from the CAT grant. Just looking at what other projects have kind of brought in and what they have funded in terms of pools and other things and splash pads from both sources, that I think that those are solid estimates for what we would be probably in a good place to apply for.
at least at this point in time, I don't know that I'm on board with moving the River Edge Trailhead to the Water Plaza. I mean, at least between the two left Water Plaza and Lynn Creek Trail Bridge, I'm gonna have a hard time putting one in front of the other. I think the Water Plaza with regards to that district makes sense, but completely ignoring the trails and some of the priorities we have, that leaves it high and dry to a certain extent. So I don't know, at least from my perspective, allocating that 560, 100% toward the Water Plaza makes sense until we have something more final in front of us. And at least today, it doesn't even sound like the budget for the plaza itself is final.
Other council comments? Public comment on this one?
Your Honor, if I may quickly.
You may.
Sorry.
Sure.
With the final design meeting next week, I would like to see all the work you've done to this point, but I also know additional features were placed into the design in hopes of being awarded the Destination Iowa grant. I'm curious if some of those features could be optioned out as a secondary option. So we see what the true cost is of a water plaza that we can, that we can afford versus one that we were trying to meet to fit the criteria of the Destination Iowa grant.
One point of clarification. So we did not actually have anything in the Destination Iowa grant that was specific towards one feature or the other. The budget that we used was $1 million total. And so we're already above that sort of with kind of doing something that's been more engineered, better designed than where we were. So we brought Bolton and Mink on board like right as the Destination Iowa funding was due. And that was just my conversation with them of what should we really realistically be putting here, and $1 million was what they advised initially without having dug in and done any of the sort of extra design work.
In terms of asking the public to contribute donated dollars, I wonder what has been raised privately with the nonprofit corporation that's been involved in the splash pad.
I'll get our checkbook out.
I believe Splash for Life has raised about $13,000.
I'll tell you the exact amount, Mr. Mayor.
And then, Jeff, I know you're involved in the trails. Think about how much has the public supported? What have been the contributions from the public for that project?
For the trailhead itself?
Right. Well, no, just the whole
Oh,
project, if you got it. I know.
I don't know off the top of my, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Probably in excess of $1 million since its inception.
We haven't even kicked off fundraising yet until we get a final design. And we're expecting some pretty good donations to come in for this.
Any other council comment before I turn it over to the public?
One
Gary?
more, Your Honor, if
Okay.
I may.
You may.
I struggle anytime we discuss reallocation of general obligation bonds, because, we go to the public with this. We have a public hearing, we tell you what we're earmarking the money for, and then for whatever reason, we don't get it, the project gets too expensive, we don't do it. and then now all of a sudden we just pick and choose what we allocate it for. I really struggle with that as a representative of the taxpayers. You know, so I'm sorry, but my first blush is if this money was allocated and we didn't get the grant, you know, my first blush is pay it back, you know, downsize the debt. And then, I just procedurally, I don't understand how we can, with a good conscience, just reallocate money after we told, you know, the public and they had their say on what we're going to use it for. That's just a editorial comment, but thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
I guess, you know, Councilmember Thompson, you do bring up something that is not presented here as an option, but it probably should be, is that, you know, we are talking about what is our borrowing for this next fiscal year, so it would be money coming in late in 2023. We certainly could borrow additional funds to fill the gaps on these where we felt like grant funds were not going to cover any expenses. That then, from a construction standpoint, means there would probably be nothing on these projects done in 2023, except for possibly starting some design work so that we could put things out to bid in early 2024. But that is certainly an option that I can bring back as a proposal with Fund 353 to the next meeting if you would like to see that.
Okay, last call for further council comments before I turn it over to the public mic. Public mic is open.
Lee Botter, 401 Orchard Drive. I am the face for Splash for Life, the local nonprofit that was started a few years back. To answer your question, Your Honor, $13,731 and some odd cents are in that. We had a couple hiccups over the years. First of all, we did not have our 501c3, so that was a hiccup that we had. We got through that hiccup. We started moving forward. We had a lot of in-kind. We'll do some in-kind donations. We'll do some bigger donations. The other hiccup was CIP. We weren't on the CIP. So that was hiccup number 2 that got resolved a couple years ago. So those are just to answer that. I'd like to address a couple things regarding the comment, or to quote, the initial estimate for the water plaza was very rough, ended up lower than the design being discussed of $1.9 million. Early on, I was brought into the project, and I was always told it was $500,000 from general obligation, $400,000 from Destination Iowa if we got the grant, and over $100,000 in fundraising. We had committed all along, Splash for Life, to help with any fundraising, be part of that process. This is consistent in all the documents that have been presented to council, approved by council, and reported to the general public by our local newspaper. I did submit a letter to you guys in October approving my standing against approving the general bond issue under resolutions 2022-291 until such time the public had the opportunity to see and approve the vision and plans of all projects being developed. I then stood in front of you choking back my tears. And thank you again, Mayor, for giving me extra time that night to say we could not support that initial, not the current design, but the initial design just because of ADA issues, safety issues, and last but not least, CIP and the supporting documents clearly indicated you were building a splash pad, not a water plaza. In full disclosure, after submitting my comments that day in presentation, I was dismissed from the design team. I did wait, as the rest of the community did, for the rollout of the water plaza design, which was held at the Coliseum on November 16th. During that public meeting, I talked in length with Casey, Hildy, Mike, and Jeff regarding the new design. I was a lot happier with the new design. Actually, I told them I was 90% happy, maybe 95% happy, because it did address the safety issue that I was concerned with. But I was concerned with the lack of play issues. The price tag at that time, again, a couple months ago, was still at $1 million. A couple weeks later, we found out Destination Iowa did not approve our proposal. So then my question becomes, how did the price tag increase $900,000? When Splash for Life received our design in February 2017, which was free of charge from Vortex, the company we had worked with, it was not $50,000 like we just paid Bolton and Mink. The projected cost to build at Anson Park was $165,000, and about another $100,000 for site preparation, electrical installation, surfacing, and other fees. Again, we'd been working on securing in-kind labor to make this truly a community build. This information was shared with the mayor, council, city staff, and during our community presentations. Inflation has not increased that much in 6 years. If you apply the numbers, it would say a 760% increase. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics for CPI, we have averaged about 122, so basically, even using 150% inflation factor, the quoted price that we had back in 2017 would put us under that $500,000. Because we as a city have a lot of financial demands. We have to rebuild our infrastructure. How about we go back to what was approved on the bond issue and do what you tell the public you were doing? Why don't we build that splash pad? We can incorporate the design that Bolton and Mink developed. We can have it by the Aquatic Center, but let's scale it back in design. And in areas for future enhancements, we can actually put things into place where we could add things in the future. We could go back to securing those in-kind donations. We are more than willing to help with fundraising. And again, we had a lot of folks that were willing to step forward, but they wanted to make sure that we were on the CIP. So please, guys, let's save some money, please.
Thank you. Other public comment? Okay. What kind of staff direction would you like on this one?
Well, at this point, this is how it will proceed to look in the next version of the capital improvement plan. Without some direction, I can certainly bring back options of what it would look like to provide additional funding with general obligation bonds. If there's other projects that you would want to see things reallocated from, we can certainly do that. So there are some options here, depending on what you would like to do. Or we can put a pin in this one until we've actually had the presentation of the splash pad. I can tell you, it does look like there is possibilities to do phasing. We've had a very high-level conversation with Bolton and Mink about that there are different elements to it that could be phased in at later dates. So that is certainly a possibility if you would like to see that come back as an option. But I can tell you, like, 500,000 is, we're just building a bathhouse, and that's the engineering and design plus your cost of a bathhouse. So, or actually 450 because we've spent 50,000. So something needs to happen there if there's more to be done on the Water Plaza side of things.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
I am in favor of moving the trailhead money to the Water Plaza. We already have $950,000 for the Land Creek Trail Bridge, the Freedom Rock to Skate Park Trail Connection. I do believe that there's some wisdom into the phasing of the project, but we really need to get the final design down to see what we can do with that. So that's my opinion.
I could call for a motion if anybody wants to make one. It was to move 560,000 allocated to the River's Edge Trailhead to the Water Plaza project.
I move for approval on that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Clarification, Your Honor?
Sure.
So the motion is to just move $560,000 that was allocated to the River's Edge Trailhead to the Water Plaza, just that amount. Is that correct?
That's what I heard.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet. Any other clarifications needed before the roll is called?
Your Honor, I guess this point, I mean, we're doing this approval is essentially just moving it on paper. I mean, we're not allocating or proceeding any forward. There's already a gap, right? So, I mean, we're literally voting on moving it for the budget purposes alone.
That's correct. It's moving it for the budget purposes, and then I think we'll help the discussion, bringing things back from the steering committee, either late in January or early in February.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to vote no on this. I think we should just wait till we see what the plan is before we move these lines. I just don't know how necessary this is.
Your Honor, I just have a question for those in the know. Obviously, I'm out of the loop. How did this turn into, from a splash pad at Anson Park to a water feature that is brochure worthy? I mean, yeah. Brochure worthy is, we don't fix problems. We like things that look good on brochures to attract people to Marshalltown. So we have no budget for operating costs. We're allocating money to build something. We don't even know how much it's going to cost us to run it every year. We don't know what the impact's going to be on the financial status of the aquatic center next door. So I guess I'm asking a question before we vote on this. Where do we go from $500,000 splash pad to a $2 million water plaza?
Yeah, to explain, so it was just last year at this time that council member, we had 500,000 that had no engineering, no nothing behind it out in like fiscal year 27, I think, 26, 27. And then through the council process last year, we did bring that forward into fiscal year 23. And we moved forward with borrowing the money based on sort of that rough estimate. And so there was never any plan or engineering behind it. The idea of a water plaza is something that's far more inclusive to our community than a splash pad. A splash pad implies that it's for children or of a certain age only, whereas a water plaza is meant to incorporate the Burmese community with their annual water festival. It's meant to be also a gathering place and not just a place where you go to get wet or do something in the summertime or warmer temperatures. And so as we started with the concept that did start out as a splash pad, we thought there is a broader use that impacts far more members of our community than just youth of a certain age or parents with young kids. And so when we broadened that definition, we felt like and I think this will be what comes back and what you'll hopefully see, is that there's a project that impacts a larger portion of our community, meeting their cultural needs in a way that was not initially thought of and that a splash pad in and of itself can't meet. So it did broaden into a project that is more than just a recreation project to one that is a community asset serving a large part of our population.
Plus, Your Honor, if I may, plus, we didn't know at the beginning that we would have to have showers, that type of thing. A regular splash pad, 400,000 or less, or 200,000, doesn't include recirculating water, that type of thing. Plus, the general feeling is in our group is that we can do something that will work for 9 months out of the year for people. It'll be a place to go, to gather, to play, instead of having something that you just turn off after 2.5 months and it sits for another 9.5 months until you use it again. And so we're trying to make something that's valuable to the community almost year round. I also don't believe that anybody, when we started working on this committee, believed that a $500,000 splash pad, that was just a number that before I was on council was just put in. They just, okay, we'll put 500,000 there. There was no design there. There was no anything. It was just they took a number and they put it there.
Your Honor, can I?
You may.
Question.
Barry, go ahead.
To add on what Jeff was talking about, will the final design also include cost estimates, actual cost estimates?
Yes.
So are we getting the cart ahead of the horse tonight?
It depends on what you want to come forward with that. If you want to pin this as a discussion that comes forward with the with the total design, we can certainly do that. So again, it's all sort of a process-related thing where we have a limited amount of time to do the budget. If the design doesn't get to you until February 13th, then we're going to be asking for very quick decisions to be made on what that looks like for funding. And so that's where getting this in front of you now to start thinking about those things, because regardless of what the design is, we don't have enough money there to do a project at any level. And so that's really the point to bring home tonight. Do you want to put something there now? It's certainly helpful in terms of a conversation at the committee level and internally planning, like how do we start to fill some gaps. But I mean, it's not absolutely necessary tonight, but it does look like we will be on a very tight timeline for when we could potentially get something in front of you and when we need to be publishing the budget.
I am more than able to make quick decisions when I have all the answers in front of me. So call to question.
Okay, that's a good idea. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
You need public input on this motion?
We've already had public discussion. Not sure we need any.
Not on the new motion to move money. You haven't, Your Honor.
It's up to the mayor to determine when there's discussion.
Yeah. Roll call.
Isom,
No.
Kell,
No.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
No.
Thompson,
No.
Walker,
No.
Hoop.
No.
Okay, that motion failed. Before we move on to the next topic, there have been times when another motion with a slightly different direction has been made. So let me open the mic to the council for that opportunity, if anybody else wants to give staff direction via a different motion. That was addressed to the council.
Oh, sorry.
And hearing no motion, I think staff has its direction, even if it isn't all that concrete.
Yeah, basically, we'll make no changes to Fund 364 as it stands, and we'll look for further direction at the January 23rd meeting as to how to handle the projects that are partially funded.
Okay, thanks. In the meantime, the council and public certainly have the opportunity to contact the city representatives and administrator and mayor with their ideas about how to handle this the next time it comes up. Let's go on to the next topic area.
Taxable, assessed and taxable valuations for fiscal year '24.
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. Let me get this document open. Oh, I guess you have it handed out to you. I'm sorry, I should have put it on the website so we could let the audience see. So to go over this is the 100% of the assessed valuations. So we did a comparison compared to last year. For fiscal year '24, there's no more multi-residential class. It's all considered residential. So I highlighted those items because the dollar change for those two items together is 16 million, which is a 1.62% increase. And then you have commercial that showed a 3.4% increase, industrial 14.65% increase. I'll just hit the big ones here. So those items, less the military exemption, the overall is $35 million increase before gas and electric utilities, which is a 2.58% increase. And then with our gas and electric, we showed a very small increase. So overall, $37 million at 2.04%. Now, if you recall, that's not what we actually get to collect. So there's been some changes in the last legislative session with that as well. So again, since there's no multi-residential, everything rolls into residential. So you have your gross amount, and your taxable would be about 56% of that number would be your taxable amount. For commercial and industrial, you remember we talked before about that is taxed at 90%. The legislature came in and said we're going to do things differently. So they changed how the business property tax credit is issued. So before, businesses could apply for the business property tax credit, and they could get up to about a little over $200,000 credit on their valuations. But we would still get that same amount as if they hadn't. Now they're saying it's not going to be part of your property tax. The state's going to issue its own standing appropriation bill. And so it'll come through as different revenue. So the valuations in the commercial, industrial, and railroads have decreased by those business property tax credits. So we'll see. The Legislative Services Agency study bill said that they'll have enough money if they continue, if the legislature does not take any action to remove that standing appropriation through fiscal year 29. Now, you know, with the backfill and the other items that we talked about in prior years, how the legislature says they'll fund something and then years later they decide not to and they phase it out. So, but we're going on the information we have right now. So is there any questions on that piece of it about the assessed valuations?
Any questions up here?
One comment that I will add, because there have been some recent articles in the newspaper about increasing assessed values based on some reassessments the county assessor's doing. That is for the next year. So those will be the January 1, 2023 values that'll be part of fiscal year 25. So we're not seeing that in the valuations that we receive for fiscal year 24.
So at the next meeting, we'll talk more about our actual taxable valuations. I'm not quite prepared to talk about this yet tonight. We just got our valuations on Friday, and we've had some questions put into the county about questions that we have. Because even though most of these items show a positive growth, when you get to the taxable valuations, they actually show a negative growth. So we'll go over that next time.
We're told that there is a workbook that exists that talks about the number of commercial and industrial properties and sort of numbers that we're talking about, as well as their valuations, to try and understand how many do we have that are under 150,000 that are now just purely paying at a residential rate versus those that are going to be your larger ones where that's a much smaller piece.
So most of us driving home tonight aren't going to be any smarter tonight than we were driving here, right?
Right. Legislature's always changing things.
Well, I haven't learned anything yet tonight. And I couldn't put my arms around what that's going to mean for us, for our budget yet. I assume that you will have, that we will be getting quite a bit more information between now and the next time we address this.
Right. Well, and it affects the general fund, our operating budget, so we'll be talking about that at the next meeting.
So I would say, kind of as Diana and I have talked, knowing that we got the valuation information late, is that our intention would be to do as much work as possible on getting the taxable valuation sort of assessed for you in terms of what that looks like in terms of history, as well as getting you some basic information about the general fund, hopefully no later than Friday of this week. So that you all have next week to really review that information, to be prepared for the January 23rd meeting, and that Diana and I would make ourselves available once you have that to try and answer any questions you might have ahead of the January 23rd meeting as well.
Okay. Anything else on this topic?
Can I just say that would be great? So I would appreciate that, thank you.
Very good. All right, next item, general fund.
Yes, we're actually not going to discuss that tonight because we did not have enough time to process the data.
The next one after that is 1.6, mayor and council for year 23 amended and for year 24 budgets.
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. So we go through each department's budget, and since you have your own budgets, we wanted to go through them with you. So here's our accounting report. The first column of numbers is the actual for fiscal year 22. The next column is our total budget for FY '23, which was adopted last March for the current year that we're in now. The third column is our year-to-date actual activity through December. And then the next column is our amended budget for fiscal year '23. So if there's any changes that you want from the adopted budget. And then the next column is our FY '24 department requests. So there isn't a whole lot of activity through these. So you will see that when we bring forth the general fund budget, that we have increased our insurance, general liability by 20% for both fiscal year '23 and fiscal year '24. So we did bump that up. That is what even though we don't have our policy renewal yet, it renews in April, but that's what the insurance agent was telling us we should plan for. So I just made a few comments on here, what's running through these different items, so you can make some sense of it. Some activities or some expenses that are in here that I don't know if you'll use or not. If we have like conference expenses for council, $1,000 for this year, $1,750 for next year. I think it's been quite a few years since that line got used. And the same thing for the mayor, $500 for this year and $1,000 for next year for conference expenses. There's not a whole lot of
In my 10 years, I
activity.
don't think any of that's been used, has it?
It tends to get used for more like little one-off meetings, like there's an upcoming chamber breakfast that I think one or two are going to, that'll show up there. Typically, when we've made it through this part of the fiscal year, and there's no conference expenses, that means you didn't go to the League of Cities annual conference, which means then we can typically start to cut down that budget, as there really are not any other larger statewide city-driven conferences for the remainder of the fiscal year.
So do you want any changes?
Your Honor, I know the conference budget, it also gets tapped after an election, right? When the new counselors come on. That's what you're saying, the League of Cities stuff, right?
That's correct. There is the Municipal Professional Academy. Is that what it is, or? Yeah.
Three
It's
classes,
elected
whatever it
officials.
is.
Yep, and so it's kind of those intro things, and so yes, so that would basically be what would be used in the next fiscal year. But we traditionally haven't had council members go to the League of Cities conference over the time that I've been here, and probably even longer.
I know we cut out memberships and dues, you know, what was that, a couple of years ago? We took it way down. Can we take the conference stuff way down too? And if we have to recover, you've got a 4-year term to recover from it, right?
Yeah, we certainly would want to keep a budget in there for fiscal year '24 to account for, new council members potentially, as well as if there is anybody who wants to attend the League of Cities. But ultimately, we still have a budget. We left $1,000 in there for the remainder of this fiscal year. That probably does not need to be $1,000 if you all don't see it something that you would be attending in the near future.
The only reason I'm bringing this up is, we look at the totals, we're talking about an account that's just going to continue to grow for no reason. And, it's not a lot of money, but it could be utilized somewhere else.
I think it was 11 years ago that I went to that League of Cities meeting, which really was very worthwhile and instructive and helpful. But I don't think we've been using it a lot since then. In terms of the big picture, yeah, this is a pretty minuscule compared to talking to $1.9 million.
So what I'm hearing you say is for the mayor conference expense, take it down to 0 for this current fiscal year? And
I don't
for
think you can take it based on a recent invoice I just submitted
Oh.
that would have a meeting
conference
expense
expense?
on there.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, but for whatever it's worth, I'm always happy to pay for my own breakfast or lunch or whatever, or mileage.
I guess all I was suggesting is we need to monitor that, and see, I'm sure it rides a roller coaster with the elections and the new people coming on, but I guess all I'm pointing out is I don't want to see this, as small as it is, I just don't want to see it grow. Does that make sense?
yes.
That's purely up to you all to make it grow.
So no changes? Or,
We need a motion on.
Yeah, well, let me go back to, does anybody object to the figures here? If so, let's call for a motion.
I'd motion leave it as is on paper.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anybody wish further discussion up here or out there? Roll call.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lonnie Hoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Okay. And our next one, request for sale of property.
Yes, so we received a request from Cynthia Lewis to purchase a portion of land that is near her home at, I'm sorry here. 10, thank you, Gary. 1021 South Fifth Avenue. And so this is a portion of, let me just bring it up on the map. Okay, the map is an easier representation. This is land that is adjacent to the Anson Park ball field. It was one that was involved in litigation in 2018 that was basically unresolved. Ms. Lewis has submitted a letter that's in your packet offering to purchase a strip of that land to the north of her property at 34.5 feet, which is not the entire amount of the land that was involved in the litigation, at a cost for $500. As I reviewed the policy, this is a transaction that fits within the policy for a direct sale, as it would create a parcel at 34.5 feet that essentially would be unbuildable, would be unusable, would have to be tied to an adjacent property owner, which would be us if not Ms. Lewis. And so the county would not actually even create that parcel without an affidavit of non-severability. So I recommend that if this is a transaction you would like to move forward with, that there be a motion to direct staff to set the public hearing. I can't guarantee what a calendar would look like for this, only because we would need CGA to basically pull out that old survey and basically set new pins at that 34.5 foot mark to get a precise legal description for this parcel to then be able to sell it.
I move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Your Honor?
Yes.
So this exact council has already discussed this. How can we bring this back?
So this is actually, it's a completely different proposal than what was previously discussed, and it's actually a request coming from the adjacent landowner, where it was not a request coming from the adjacent landowner previously.
Yeah, I am not in favor of this. This is property contiguous to property we already own. Whatever happened in the past happened in the past, but I don't believe it's wise to give this property up.
Other council discussion?
What would be the cost of moving the fence versus the cost? Well, first, I guess, first question is, Your Honor, is who's paying for CGA or whatever surveyor to repin that?
We would probably be paying for that. I don't know what that would cost, only because they do have recent, within the last 4 years, survey of that area and what that would cost, since they do have a more recent document.
Then my question is, if this fails tonight, what is the cost of moving the fence to the actual property line between Miss Lewis's property and the city property? Because the fence is 34.5 feet away from that right now, correct?
No, I think the fence is like 53 feet away from it. I honestly don't know what an estimate would be. I believe there'd be a lot of tree removal that would have to be done in order to move that fence as well. So probably establishing a new fence is the cheaper option.
I wanted to comment on that. Heather Thomas, Public Works. Marshalltown Waterworks recently completed a project along this stretch and restoration has not been completed. On behalf of the city, I did authorize Marshalltown Waterworks to remove the fence that was located in city right-of-way and not replace that in that area. It was a pretty poor shape fence to begin with.
Your Honor, if I may.
Yes.
So you're saying the fence that runs north-south, not the fence that runs east-west?
It would be the fence that runs north-south and any portion of it that ran east-west that needed to be removed from Marshalltown Waterworks to get their utility in.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thanks, Heather. So, Your Honor, I'd be in favor of this. We need to put this to bed, put it to rest. The family's been maintaining this property, city property, for years. I don't see this, like I said before, this is no different than the property down on Edgewood that the party was maintaining city property. So I think this is a good thing to do tonight.
Other council comment? Open to the public comment. Roll call.
Isom,
No.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie Hoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
No.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
No.
Hoop,
Yes.
Okay, that one carried. Staff has direction on that. And the next and last is discussion about the request to dispose of city-owned lots.
Yes, Your Honor. I have a few properties that people have kept their eyes on as we've been doing our demolition, well, before and after demolition. And so we've just made some final payments on some of these. One is a prior one that we were unable to sell previously that I've had contact on. And so 519 South Fifth Street is general industrial. It cannot have a home built on it. And I have some industrial neighbors that are very interested in this. 4 North 12th Avenue, this one is a very tiny lot that we did a demolition after a fire occurred at the property. It would be difficult well, it's too small for a home to be built on. There are 2 adjacent owners who are interested in it. And then the final one is 500 Lee Street. This one is buildable. This was one, after success in getting some really high bids back on some properties, this was one we sent out to adjacent neighbors and no one bid on it. But after the bid, I had 2 of the neighbors call me and say that they were interested in it. And they just didn't open our notice that was in the mail. And so there is interest in this one. I don't believe anybody is looking to put a house on it. I do believe it's for yard and garage expansion. And so those are the 3 where I feel like I've got enough interest to move forward with requesting a sale by a sealed bid.
Quick question, Your Honor.
Go for it.
Jessica, the 650, the 2 that are the 657As, that's a warranty deed?
Nope, we would do quit claim deeds on all of these.
Even the one we bought outright was still a quick claim?
Yep, we did a quit claim on it. We didn't bring the abstract up to date.
Thank you.
Sure. Other council comments? Public comment? Motion for staff direction.
I move for approval to sell these properties.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie Hoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. And we're used to having comments at the end. We had them at the beginning, or that's where we've moved them to. So we are adjourned at 6:58 PM. Thanks for coming. Remembered the gavel.